Hey, this is Vince Papale. I'm a fellow Hawk brother, and of course I'm the guy from Invincible, and you're listening to Sports and Rants with Brett and Pants right here on 1851, my Hawk brothers, and the Hawk will never die.
And we are back. This is Sports and Rants with Brett and Pants. I'm your host, Brett Suter, along with my co-host, Glenn Pantalone, and we are on live with former Phillies catcher, two-time All-Star, Mike Lieberthal. Mike, how you doing today?
Great. Just woke up not too long ago. It's an incredible day, and I hit the golf course probably around 12:30.
Yeah, tell our listeners what the weather is like out there in California right now.
It's amazing. It's been amazing for probably 2 weeks now. It's been literally 75 degrees. I don't think it's really gotten above 75, so it's been perfect for like 2 weeks straight. Perfect golf weather.
Out there in California, do you still pay attention to the Phillies?
Yeah, all the time. I'm in fantasy baseball, which I've been doing for probably the last 5 years. So I've followed pretty much the whole Major League Baseball.
So what are your thoughts so far in the Phillies season? They haven't been looking too good out there.
Yeah, they haven't been, really hitting too much lately. There's a couple new players. There's the leadoff hitter.
Yeah, Herrera.
Yeah, he's a new kid that I've never seen before. And I saw Galvis was kind of hitting second. He's been hitting pretty well, though, lately.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that he's been hitting well. Utley's kind of off to a slow start. And Howard is off to a slow. It just seems like the whole lineup is, I ran through the numbers yesterday, and it seemed like Galvis was really the only guy that was really, doing well offensively so far.
Now, with a guy that's Chase Utley, Ryan Howard, veterans on the team, how difficult is it to get going again, get yourself started and get out of that funk once you're in it?
Yeah, but it's so early in the season that I don't think they're not, too worried about it, and they're definitely not looking at their numbers at this point. Just being, really like 2 weeks into the season, it's not really a concern for, I don't think, anybody right now. It's just, you like to get off to a hot start, like anything else. But like I said, with 2 weeks in, it's not, as a player, you're not really looking at your stats or worried about kind of what you're doing at this point.
Do you have any particular guys you like to watch throughout the season, pitcher or hitter?
Every guy on my fantasy team. There's certain players that you love to watch. I like to watch, obviously, Mike Trout. He's just amazing to watch as a player. Five-tool star that's fun to watch. And I watch the Dodgers a lot just because it's my local team. So I see, Jimmy Rollins got off to a great start with that winning home run on the first game, back at Dodger Stadium. So it's kind of cool to see him on TV here. And, so I kind of follow, and Adrian Gonzalez hitting those 5 home runs in, the first 3 days was, crazy. So that's pretty much, the team that kind of everyone talks about around here.
All right, so do you still get that itch to go out to play baseball, to get out there on the field still now that the season has started again?
No chance. My body says no chance. I mean, I pulled a calf muscle just training my kids' Little League team a couple weeks ago, just running agility drills. So I definitely am not, I don't miss, kind of being out there on the field. I miss being around the guys, being in the clubhouse, stuff like that. I would like to hit, though. I think that's the only thing that I probably miss is just actually getting in the box because, you feel like you can still do that because there's not too many injuries that can happen swinging the bat.
That's very true, very true. So now, Mike, we want to get into a little bit about how you got started in baseball and what led you to where you are today and how you got into the big leagues. So could you just take us into what made you play baseball?
Well, I started, unlike today's era, it seems like kids are starting at 3-4 years old. I didn't start till I was 8 years old, which was like pinto pitch, which was kid pitch. Back then, that was my first year. I didn't play T-ball. And I just remember I always had a really good arm, and I can catch the ball. And they put me behind the plate like my first year catching in pinto pitch, and I was really good, but I only got one hit the whole year. I think it was like a triple to right field. And the coach was like, I really want to put him on the All-Star team, but he only got one hit, so I just can't do it. So my dad wound up putting a batting cage in the backyard pretty much the next month. And then I pretty much hit like every day in the backyard and, got better. And it was like the next year I was on the All-Star team. And from there I was, developed myself into a good hitter, put a lot of work into it in the backyard, many hours. And then when I got into high school, I was actually, I switched to shortstop and second base. And I didn't really return back to catching until my senior year in high school, when I realized that, I wasn't really a fast runner and I would have to move to third base and hit a lot of home runs, which was a tough way, really to get to the major leagues. It's, there's a lot of pressure once you sign a major league contract in the minor leagues to really hit as a first baseman or third baseman. So, a lot of scouts told my dad that I should move behind the plate, and it wound up being the best decision for me, not only in the draft. I wound up signing high in the draft by the Phillies, and catching as shortstop and center field are really like kind of the quickest way to the major leagues, because major league teams are in need of that, those positions. So, just because my speed, I wish I was a shortstop. I think it would have been a lot easier on my body and just a little easier as far as just playing that position. But, and I tried to get, it was funny, my dad had me in track lessons and track coaches, just trying to get my 60-yard dash time down for the scouts and the combines. But it just didn't happen. I think my fastest 60 was like 7 flat. So that wasn't going to cut it as a shortstop.
So going off that, you said they told you to move the catcher, but looking at you, you're not the prototypical catcher build. So what made that decision for you, and do you think that scouts looked at you differently because you weren't that prototypical catcher that people were used to seeing?
Yeah, it seemed like back then, like, all catchers were really big guys. It seems like today, I think more players, like the Russell Martins, the more athletic players are really, they're not worried about their size as much. I think it was like myself and Jason Kendall, who were two smaller catchers that kind of came up together. And, and it kind of broke that trend, I think, a little bit. And it just seems like now you just see more of like the lean, athletic type guy. You still see some of the big guys like Matt Wieters and, a few of the catchers, but it just seems like back in 1990, there was just all these, you had to be big to be a catcher. It's the only way you can last a full season in the major leagues. And, you thought, scouts were like, oh, he's going to break down, 3/4 of the way through the season just because of his weight. And that's the kind of the knock when I came up. I think I signed when I was like 155 pounds, and I went to spring training, and nobody thought that I would last a full season, especially if I was playing in the Florida State League where it was humid throughout the summer. And which is true, but I gained weight every year throughout the minor leagues. Obviously, at 155 pounds, if you're playing every day, you're going to lose some bat speed, and it's going to affect you in the long season. But I think now with just guys staying in shape, lifting weights throughout the year, they kind of keep themselves strong, so you don't have that breakdown as much as you had back then.
With your size back then, did the Phillies ever approach you asking you to make a position change, or were you always going to be the Phillies' future catcher?
Yeah, I was always going to stay behind the plate. If anything, I knew if I didn't make it as a starter, I would be a backup, and and that would be my role, in the major leagues. Is because there's always a need even for backup catchers. There's just a strong, it's a commodity just to be a really good defensive catcher, and that's one thing I had was defense. I always had a great arm. I always was a good defensive catcher, so I always knew I had that. And if you can get the combination of where you got a guy that can catch and hit, that's that's huge, and it's really tough to find. So I knew that if I didn't hit, I still had a good chance to make it.
So being the third overall pick for the Phillies, did you expect to go there? Was that the team that was most interested in you during the time?
No, I didn't. I knew I was going to go in the first round. I actually thought that I might go. I think the Dodgers had like the 9th pick, and I felt that might be the team because I was talking to their scouts, and I felt that might be the pick that I would go. But you never know. I knew I would go in the first round. I didn't realize I was going to go that high by the Phillies, which they had the 3rd pick that year. So, but I was delighted. To go that high, and I definitely did not know that the Phillies were that interested until they made the call and they told me I was the 3rd pick.
Now, we constantly hear guys deciding whether or not to go to college or go right to the minor leagues. What attributed to your decision, and what are your thoughts on that in today's baseball?
I went on 4 recruiting trips. I think it was Arizona, Arizona State, Texas A&M, and Cal Berkeley. And I discussed it with my dad. My dad was like, if you were drafted, if I was drafted in the first 2 rounds, I was going to sign, knowing that the money that they give, even back then, I felt that the money that they were giving in the first 2 rounds was worth a chance to sign, because they were going to give, a team was going to give every opportunity for you to make it. Even if you failed in the minor leagues for the first year or 2, they're not going to release you because they have that investment in you. Now it seems like, in today's day, it might be the first 5 or 6 rounds. Seems like a lot of players throughout those rounds are getting a lot of money. So that investment that a team makes, it's really hard to pass up. You have every chance to make it throughout the levels, to move up every level in the minor leagues. They've made that investment. Even if you fail in the first couple of years, I think you're still going to move up the ladder. It's hard to pass up that opportunity. You can say that, well, I might get that opportunity after 3 years of college, but you just never know how things are going to pan out after 3 years. But I knew, if I wasn't drafted that high, if I was going later in rounds, then I was definitely committed to go to school, which I think, I would tell my son today, if he was drafted probably in the later rounds and he had an opportunity to go to a great school, that I would definitely push him towards school. You get it, right? It's just,
yeah, of course.
That investment is very important.
Once you were drafted, what was your initial thoughts? Were you excited to come to Philadelphia? Did you know what to expect?
Yeah, I didn't really know much about Philadelphia at all. I didn't like the colors, the maroon. Back then the Philly maroon was a little different. And I grew up as a Dodger fan. But you just never knew. You never know what team you're going to be drafted on, so it was just kind of like, whatever, I'll take. If you're drafted in the first round, it's just a joy. So really, I don't think it really mattered, and I really didn't know much about the Phillies until I was drafted. Then I had to kind of go back into their history.
Now, something we like to do on here with the athletes we have on, especially baseball players, is to discuss the track through the minor leagues. Some athletes say it's the best time of their lives going through the minors to reach that goal in the majors. What was that like for you? And did you ever play with guys that you thought, wow, I can't believe he never made it to the majors?
Yeah, I think so. I remember my first year in the minor leagues, we had a second baseman that was like, I think he was our leading hitter on our team. I think his name was Jeff Borghese, and he wound up getting released that following year. He was a guy that really couldn't run, and second baseman in the Phillies thought there really wasn't much future, even though he hit whatever it was, 315. So that was kind of a surprise, and but I enjoyed the minor leagues. When you're that young, you don't really think about we were staying at, the Easy 8 motels, and it was just not if you think about today, I'm sure I don't know where they stay now in the lower minor leagues. They probably still stay at in small hotels, and accommodations aren't the greatest. Fields aren't the greatest. Fields have really improved, though, in the minor leagues over the last 20 years. It's unbelievable. It seems like every minor league team has a great stadium, and they get a lot of fans. But I remember when I came up, I mean, it was almost like high school fields you were playing at. But I never really thought about it back then. It was just fun to be around the guys, and it was kind of I enjoyed the bus rides, and I mean, you had a few long ones, 10, 11-hour bus rides, but I think when you're that young, it's not something that you're like, you know, now you kind of think about, God, I wish I could fly. I don't want to be on a bus for longer than 3 hours, let alone 11 hours.
Right.
So, and I moved up so quick, so it's not, you know, I didn't spend too much time in the minor leagues, and I have a bunch of friends that spent, 9, 10 years in the minor leagues, so they have plenty of stories.
With being drafted 3rd overall and your quick trip through the minors, did you feel any extra pressure put on you that being so young, 22, with making your first appearance in the MLB at June 30th, 1994?
Well, definitely. I mean, I was drafted, like I told you, 155 pounds. I went to spring training, extended spring training, and everyone was like, this was our 3rd pick. This guy is 155 pounds. We could have had Alex Fernandez. We could have had this guy or this guy. And this guy's a catcher? How is that possible? So, yeah, and Bill Conlon, who was the big writer for Philadelphia for forever, you know, he had many articles come out saying, you know, how the Phillies made a mistake on the draft pick and how I was probably just going to be a backup catcher, you know, if I did make it to the major leagues. And, you know, there was definitely that. I mean, I can understand it, too. You know, being my size and, you know, taking a high round pick. You know, you don't know expectations, especially out of high school. I'm not sure how a kid's going to develop. You know, I think it was a definite risk on the Phillies' part.
During the minors, how did you develop your body to become prepared for the majors? Or was there still development throughout your rookie year in the majors?
Yeah, I think it was just in time. You know, you gain weight obviously as the older you get.
Right, grow into your body.
But I was definitely, you know, on weight programs in the off seasons, and that was a big part of my off seasons was trying to put on weight. I just remember, like, after my first year, I knew, like, God, how am I gonna, if I go to the Florida State League next year, which was high A ball for the Phillies, how am I gonna last a full season? So even from the first season on, I was, you know, taking shakes and trying to put on weight in the off season, and I think I continued that throughout the next 4 or 5 years as my goal. And just because it was the knock on myself. So I put on weight probably, I would say, at least 10 to 15 pounds a year. And I worked hard at it, you know.
Could you just take us back to June 30th, 1994, where you made your major league debut, and through that rookie season, what it felt like to finally make it to the big leagues?
Yeah, I remember I was in Rochester, New York, in AAA for the Phillies, and I got the phone call after a game, and it was Lee Thomas saying how, you know, Mike, Aaron, Dalton, I think he broke his collarbone, and we need you up here tomorrow. We're going to L.A. So I was like, wow, what a coincidence. Like, I'm going to get called up. My first game's going to be at Dodger Stadium. So that was a little nerve-wracking, but pretty amazing, you know, just to have my friends and family for my first game at Dodger Stadium. And I think we wound up losing the game, but I got my first hit that game. Pedro Estacio was the pitcher for the Dodgers, and it was just an amazing moment that, you know, I can kind of relive, like, that day, you know, in my mind. And then it was funny. Then the next year, started in AAA, and I think Dalton twisted his knee and tore ligaments, and same call. I think, Lee Tom, Mike, by the way, you're getting called up again. We're going to L.A. tomorrow. It was the same thing, and I came up. Next day, I'm in L.A. in Dodger Stadium.
Well, undoubtedly, your best season came in 1999 when you hit 300 with 31 home runs, were an All-Star, and you won the Gold Glove. Why do you think you had so much success that season, and what led to that success?
I don't know. It was like weird. It was one of those years. It felt like every series I played in, I felt like I was going to hit a home run. And then I think it was, and then the following year, or in 2003, I think it was really my best hitting year. I wound up hitting 318, and I was at 330 for most of the season. I felt like that was like my best year overall as far as just being a pure hitter. And I only had 8 home runs. And it was just weird how, I had the same power, but how did I go from 30 to 8 home runs? And I was still the same hitter. But it was just like, the ball that year just seemed like it was like a beach ball, It was like, you're hitting all these home runs and then you expect the same every year. And, you have the same power. It's like you're in batting practice and the ball's going just as far and you're hitting, the same strength. But the next year you hit 8 home runs. It was like one of those years, because I didn't duplicate it. I think the previous years I had 20 home runs in 97, and I just had that one big booming year in 99. And it was just hard to explain. It's like, you're in that groove and you're seeing the ball well, and things are just, happening for you.
Now, with that, would you consider yourself a contact hitter, a power hitter after that season? Because we looked at your statistics. You averaged around the 300 mark for most of your career. Did you think you could get that power and hit the 30 home runs in your mind? Did you think you could reach that?
I don't think so. I think I felt like 20 was like, what I was capable of, and I just, it was just like one of those years where everything just went right. I never really tried to think about home runs, because I've always never been really a big home run guy. And I've always been a big a contact hitter. I've always been very aggressive, limited walks, really didn't strike out much. So I always put the ball in play. I was just, I never really tried to hit home runs. I've always been kind of like a doubles hitter. And, like I said, it was just one of those years.
We normally don't see that type of production from catchers, and you would go on to play in the All-Star game. What was it like to be in the dugout with all those All-Stars, the greats of that time, and interacting with them?
Yeah, I know. I mean, Derek Jeter was probably the one guy that I remember most, and just thinking about his career, now it's he was one guy, and I remember Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were two guys that had the home run contest. In '99 was at Fenway Park, so it was pretty amazing to see Ted Williams. I think he threw out the first pitch, and that was a pretty amazing moment, watching McGwire in the home run contest at Fenway Park. Getting a hit off Mariano Rivera, a little chopper up the middle. It happened so fast that as a player, it's, you just got to take it in for that one day that you're a part of that history. You also remember Pedro Martinez striking out, I think, the first 5 or 6 guys at Fenway Park, the silence in the dugout. Mike Piazza was kind of an idol for me at that time, so backing him up during that game. Little stuff like that I think is kind of the memories that I still have today.
Now, you had some great success during your career, and you had a lot of great moments. One of my favorite moments that you were involved in was the Kevin Millwood no-hitter. Do you remember that game, and was Millwood's stuff different that game?
Yeah, his location was amazing. His movement to the left-handed hitters. He always had that fastball that would come back on a start off the plate inside on a left-hander and come back in. And I just remember he had so many strikeouts that he had so much his movement on his pitches that game and his control. It was just one of those special games that you just knew that it was going to be pretty special from the beginning. And yeah, that's just one of my favorite, definitely for me, my only no-hitter, one of my favorite moments. And just being, it was a day game, and I think Kevin Millwood, did he throw another no-hitter in his career?
Yeah, he threw one with the Braves, I believe.
Yeah, that's right, I remember that. But, yeah, it was just a special moment. Jim Thome at first base. I definitely have that day vividly in my mind.
Could you remember any extra tension as the game got closer to finish?
Oh, yeah, definitely, especially the last two innings, for sure. You're just hoping, praying to God that please, because it's such a special day and you don't want one hit to ruin it. But, yeah, when you get to that point, the last 6 outs is definitely a little jittery.
Did Kevin buy you anything special after the no-hitter was complete?
Yeah, I think so. I think he, whether it was a watch, and I think he took me out to a few dinners. But yeah, he was one of the special pitchers that I caught throughout my time with the Phillies. And there wasn't many. I mean, I know Curt Schilling was, probably the best I caught throughout my years. But yeah. I think Kevin Millwood would be definitely in the top 3.
Now, you're a Phillies Wall of Famer. You got inducted a few years ago. What was that honor like, and how does it feel to be enshrined in Citizens Bank Park?
Pretty amazing to be part of those players. I mean, just the guys on that wall are pretty special. And to be a part of that every year at Alumni Weekend is something that I'm lucky to have. So it's just, like I said, just to have, my face on that wall, it's pretty special to be part of, especially an organization like the Phillies. It's such a sports town, such a baseball town. For the rest of my life, I love going back to Philadelphia. I'll be back every year for Alumni Weekend. And like I said, just to be around, some of the greats with the Phillies, that are still there in Alumni Weekend and share their moments is pretty special.
Are you excited to see Pat Burrell go in this year, your former teammate?
Oh, yeah, I can't wait for his speech. Oh, God, that's nerve-wracking, that speech. And he's one of my favorite players that I played with. We had such a good time together throughout the years, and he had some incredible special moments for the Phillies, the World Series team, and I'm sure the fans are going to be excited to see him.
All right, Mike, as we're wrapping up the interview now, could you just tell us who was your favorite guy that you caught during your career?
My favorite guy that I caught would just have to be Schilling, just his dominance, he had some special games. And many strikeouts. It's always fun to catch strikeouts, and he had plenty of them. I remember one game against the Yankees, I think he had, I can't remember how many strikeouts, but it was, I think, when he broke the record for the Phillies strikeout record. And he was always a guy you knew on the 5th day that you were going to win. So having a number one that you knew, just having that, whether you were in a losing streak or even a winning streak to keep you hot. He was a guy that was always prepared, and definitely throughout my time, I mean, there's no question he was the best pitcher and my favorite pitcher to catch.
Do you think one day we'll see Kurt getting into the Hall of Fame?
I think so. I think with his World Series and playoff resume, not only what he did throughout his career during the season, I think he will get in. It might take some time, but I think he will be in.
All right, Mike, could you just tell the Philadelphia fans out here what you're doing now since retirement from baseball?
Well, I have 3 amazing boys, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And my 6-year-old is started baseball this year. I have a 4-year-old that's in karate, and they're all in swimming lessons. So I'm busy with them. I'm playing a lot of golf. I just started doing like amateur golf tournaments. So as you know, golf takes a lot of time, a lot of practice, and I love it. It kind of replaces baseball and the grind of baseball. So, I'm just enjoying really my kids and watching them grow up, and I'm playing a lot of golf.
All right, Mike, thank you for joining us. We appreciated your time and a look back on your career.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's great talking to you.
Thank you.
This concludes our podcast of Sports and Rants with Brent and Pants. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Twitter @Sports and Rants. Like us on Facebook. Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. And visit our website, www.sportsandrants.blogspot.com. It would help our rankings on iTunes if you rate and review our podcast. Thanks, and have a good day.